our working day, 9 to 5, that was developed in the 1920s, and it was basically developed for the car industry, where they were wanting, people on factory lines where you were, you were building components, right? But a lot of the work we're now doing is what I would call more intellectual work and more creative work. And I think especially when you look the way AI is going, actually a lot of the skills that neurodivergent people have are actually going to become super important.
Yeah.
But with that kind of work, we need a whole different energy to stand in, packing. And I'm not demeaning people packing things on a factory line. I've stood in a factory line and packed things, but where you're needing to, make good decisions and be flexible to what's happening around you, like all of that takes, good thinking power. And that, I would argue, does not happen when people are working crazy hours where they're absolutely flat out. And I do believe that if we look at industry, government, health, probably education, we've a lot of people in these sectors who are absolutely burnt out. And I would argue that nobody who's burnt out is making good decisions.
I think burnout, though, comes from, I think when people don't enjoy their job and it's repetitive and tedious, and that they're more likely to get burnt out. Because I feel like for people that do enjoy their job, and I'm like, I've spoken to a couple of people in the podcast that really, their job is their life. They love their job. Yeah. They'll work over and beyond because it's not really work.
But also
them.
that work's energizing them.
It's stimulating
so
them.
It's stimulating them. I think there's still a tendency to need to watch it. I think we all need to get outside, and there's certain things. There's certain things that are fundamentally important, but I would absolutely agree with you. Burnout does happen more where a higher percentage of our job is doing stuff we don't enjoy. And if I look at the periods where I was really burnt out, I wasn't doing the stuff I enjoyed. I wasn't in talking to customers. I wasn't looking at new products. I was fighting fires on a daily basis. And that is absolutely exhausting. And so there's actually a really good tool called the GC Index, the Game Changer Index.
Okay.
And it looks at your energy to make an impact in an organization. So a lot of like the tools that we've used before are like personality tools, whereas this is specifically looking at your energy. And so one of the words that's quite common, people will say to me, and it was a word I used to use a lot, I'd be like, I'm so frustrated, and the psychologist who developed the GC Index, the reason it was developed was, I think it was 2013, he was working with quite a number of large companies.
Yeah.
And they kept asking him the same question. Where do we find game changers? And he was like, it's quite an interesting question. And why do I keep getting asked the same thing by different companies? And so he also did some research work. And so he got a research grant, and he basically started looking into this. And so he came up with a model where effectively there's 5 different kinds of energy. And generally, people will not just have one energy. They've maybe got a couple that are their more dominant energies.
Yeah.
But where people... So what happens is, and I think this is very common in people's careers, and I would say it was what happened to me in the food industry, is you can get almost like pigeonholed by your competence. So people will say, oh yeah, Lyn can do that, and therefore, because Lyn can do that, that job gets given to Lyn. But that doesn't mean, I'm now speaking about myself in that, is that even third person? That's a bit freaky. But anyway, right. But you get almost like pigeonholed into what you can do. But just because you can do something doesn't mean that energizes you. And so by using this tool, it helps you to understand where your energy is. And therefore, like, everybody has to do stuff in their job they don't like. This isn't a perfect world that we live in. I think we're all able to accept that. I have to do family admin. I absolutely hate it, but that's just that's a necessary evil. We all have to do our tax returns. We hate that, but anyway, we do it. But the point is that it's that percentage of, and I think Gallup had done some research, and that fascinates me because I don't even know how you would research this, but that you need at least 20% of stuff in your job that really energizes you. And I think that is a really interesting concept for organizations, because effectively, if you can harness the stuff that really interests your different team members, then you're going to get more productive, happier team than if people are sort of doing the stuff they have to do. And obviously the GC index you can use from an individual point of view, or you can use it from a team point of view, or you can do the whole organisation. And what's also really good at highlighting is we're all good at being around people that are like us, if that makes sense, because we know how to deal with them. But for example, there was a guy in my team who his son had Asperger's syndrome. And I suspect he probably, with hindsight, he probably had it as well. And him and I had quite a fractious working relationship. Like, I found him very frustrating, and I think he found me very frustrating. But when we got to a point where we sort of delineated the tasks that needed done, and we got to a point where he was doing stuff that he really found stimulating, and he would go into huge amounts of detail on things, whereas for me that it was a lot of inputting information and coordinating forms and things like that, and when I was trying to do it myself, it was awful. Whereas he was then bringing it to me in this amazing format where it was all summarised, and I just had to kind of look at it, and straight away I could say, well, that's a good product, we should definitely be doing that, or no, I don't agree with that figure, we'll never sell that amount of money on that product. And I think that to me is really interesting, because I think recognising that different people have different ways of working, and obviously I'm talking 20 years ago when, he didn't know he was neurodivergent, I didn't know I was neurodivergent, but when we can understand that people think differently, and also it's not even just about being neurodivergent, it's about the fact that the way we think is based on, our childhood experiences we've had since, maybe the culture we've grown up in. It's like a whole array of different things that shapes the way we think. And so I think once you understand that, it helps us work together more amiably.